on this week's episode of Be More Super, all the viewers and listeners know I'm a massive autograph nut, as they say. And what's great, there's a new company, Everest Autographs, that has formed, and they've come out, on social media and on the internet with a bang with their first signing, which we're going to talk about. But we're joined by the owner and the person behind the company. It's Chris Wyman. Chris, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you so much. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, do you know what? For me, autographs has been a passion ever since I was really young, and it elevated when I bought a Christopher Reeve autograph. It ended up to be fake, and since then, literally, I've spent the last probably 15, 20 years studying his autograph, all the different styles he's had in the past. And I'm glad to say I've got a number of genuine ones in my collection, and I'm part of the Superman Collectors Autograph Group. I'm an admin on that site as well, which they're a great bunch of guys. But I just wanted to start out by asking, what got you into this industry of autographs? Because was you a collector, or is something that just took you by surprise?
So Star Wars is what got me into this particular hobby. I was just a Star Wars fan as a child, growing up, playing with the toys, collecting things. And then I started going to the Star Wars Celebration events years ago. And, that's where there was 30, 40, 50 Star Wars actors all just lined up with tables, and you can go meet them all. And so I started delving into autographs a little bit, back in the day when some of the earlier celebrations were going on, and it just kind of led to getting more involved in that and volunteering my time to kind of work with some of the actors, at these events, and collecting more, buying more, and then eventually that led to kind of a part-time job doing it, and then after a couple of years of that, I kind of had to make a choice. I was so involved in the autographs at that point that I had to make a choice to leave the job I had and focus full time on that, or just stop doing it. So I decided to keep going with the autographs.
And the rest is history. And you joined Official Picks, which are quite well known. And I've spent quite a few pounds with that company. I've got to say, I think Keith Sutherland, Gene Hackman, which is his birthday today, 94 today.
That's right.
Which he is going strong. So you've started Everest Autographs. So what made you decide to start your own company? Because that's got to be a daunting, thought to start out on your own.
It was. And, after 16 years, with Official Picks, I decided it was time to move on and do something different. The business model kind of started with conventions, and I felt like, that's kind of what everybody's doing. Everybody's going to conventions and offering the same names kind of all the time, the same names every weekend. You can get them in any city or state or whatever. Everybody has conventions and stuff. And all the while doing that, I was actually doing some bigger private signings as well, with some names that were not on the convention circuit. And I felt like that's really a niche that a lot of people weren't tapping into. And instead of doing the same thing everybody else was doing, I thought, well, let me just focus on something else here that nobody's focusing on, or that very few are, and that's offering names that you are never going to see at a convention, or if it is, it's just a one-off thing, and the opportunity's not going to be there again after that. So offering names like Sylvester Stallone, Joe Pesci, Clint Eastwood, those guys are not doing conventions. You're not going to go up to a table and meet them. So focusing on stuff like that, I think, is what got me excited about the thought of starting my own company. And I had enough I had enough of this over the last 16 years kind of in the bag to go, you know what, I think this will be successful if that's what I focus on, and just, you know, let other people do the convention stuff. That's cool. Everybody likes that stuff. That's fine. But there's enough out there, I think, for this to succeed as it is with private signings.
I mean, obviously, you've got your name. You're very well known. You're like a celebrity yourself online regarding what you've done in the past. So, what do you think are going to be the biggest challenges for you? Because you know, with these stars, is it getting them? Is it you know, finding that perfect star that people want? I mean, what are the challenges that you're going to be facing, do you think?
Well, I mean, getting signings, you know, is definitely a challenge always. You know, you have to get somebody to agree to do it. There is a lot of people trying to do this now. There's a lot of offers out there. When you contact somebody, you know, they may say, oh, we already had an offer come in that was, you know, considerably higher than that and already said no. So you're going to have to go way higher than than that. But sometimes it's just relationships. And I have a lot of relationships I've formed over the years, and people, they seem to, you know, like working with me, and that's great because then I can just make a phone call and say, hey, I see you represent this person. Can we figure something out? And, you know, instead of them hanging up on you, you know, you actually get a conversation and proceed with maybe getting a contract in place to do that and offer their clients. So another challenge obviously is getting the name out there. This is a brand new company. Nobody's ever heard of it before. So yes, well, they know my name. If somebody sees the name of the company and they've never heard of it, they may not even think twice and just, you know, close the page or, you know, skip to the next post or whatever. So a lot of it's going to be word of mouth. And then obviously I have a very a large amount of friends on Facebook, you know, that I've got over the years. You know, people have friend requested, and so that's helpful as well, you know, posting things that a lot of people see all at once. But I feel like it's not going to take long. You know, people will see this, and, you know, word of mouth, people are going to start talking about it. You know, they're going to say, oh, this is where you go if you want, you know, this kind of service right out of the gate. You know, the history is there, you know, between my wife and I, who have both been in this industry for quite a long time. There's almost 30 years of combined experience. And so, you know, we know what we're doing, and we're good at it. So it's just a matter of putting all that together and having a large amount of people, you know, be able to see that.
I mean, the one thing I loved when you announced, obviously, the formation of the company, the fact that you weren't going to do the standard sort of stars. It's going to be people that you know, you won't necessarily think of straight away, you know, from these conventions. And I like the idea of that because, as you know, there are stars out there that don't do conventions. I mean, one star comes to mind, Kurt Russell. You know, doesn't do conventions, and I don't think he'll ever will. He's that type of person that might not want to sit at a table and exchange money and everything like that. So people like that could potentially be on your list in the future, because I was interviewing one of the people from Prop Store, who are my sponsors for the show. And they've got a poster auction on, and a lot of the stuff is signed, the posters. And they had a beautiful The Thing poster that's signed by all the cast, director, but no Kurt Russell, because they said that they don't do conventions or anything like that. So you've had an announcement for your first guest. I'm going to bring the picture on here. I'm so excited about this. You know, this guy is just like literally 2 Academy Awards, Golden Globe. He's literally won so many awards. And to be fair, he's one of my favorite Lex Luthors, behind Gene. Believe it or not, that's probably going to split opinions. So someone like this, I mean, obviously it's quite controversial. And I hate to say, but I think he's an amazing actor. All the charges have been dropped, and you know, I've been on Facebook fighting Kevin's corner because, you know, he's been found innocent. But people are forgetting how amazing this guy is, how many awards he has won, how many great characters he's portrayed on screen. And the fact that you're offering him at actually a really good price. I mean, we look at like Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger, and they charge quite a lot. So for someone like Kevin, I think it's a steal. It really is. So how did this come about? Actually getting this organized, how difficult was that?
Well, this was one of the awesome opportunities that I have somebody call me and say, this is my client, and would you like to offer him? And so it actually was, the question was, how quickly could you be ready to launch a signing? And I said, well, gosh, I mean, my website's still being built right now. It's going to be a little bit. And they said, how about 36 hours?
Wow.
I said, that's not possible. My website's not ready. It's still being built and tweaked and all that. And I said, well, who do you have? And when they told me it was Kevin, I thought, well, let me see what we can do. So I went to my web design team and we talked it out, and we were able to do just a very basic page to start taking orders for him. The website is still being worked on. It's not done, and that's not how it's going to be when it is done, but it serves its purpose for this particular signing. So what's up now will be much different, when it's all done. But for those who do want to make an order, it's pretty easy. You can either order a photo or you can send your own item in. But that's it. I mean, that's as easy as that was. They called and said, you want to do this? Will you do this? And I said, yes. So here we go.
I mean, a spectacular guest, but very, very brave on the actual guest as well, because, it has split opinions, which is sad because, you're innocent before proven guilty. I think that's the way
Right.
it goes. And obviously everything's been dropped. And I feel sorry for Kevin because he's had such a bad run of luck over the last few years because of this. So it's really nice to see him out and actually doing sign-ins and actually, giving some love back to the loyal fans that were behind him the whole time, which is great. So I cannot wait. But yes, Lex Luthor, I actually loved him in Superman Returns. I'm a massive fan of that film, even though a lot of people don't like it. But again, you've got pictures from every single film that he's been in, which I think is fantastic. Obviously, you've been side by side with so many great names out there. I mean, has there been, someone that's really taken you by surprise that's actually been, overly nice? Because obviously we just see them on screen. We don't see them, in their everyday life. So which star has actually taken you by surprise?
By and large, most celebrities have been very kind. It's a little different. A lot of times people talk about how somebody is really rude on the street. They're very unkind to their fans. And a lot of that has to be, you have to consider that somebody's chasing you down the street, trying to get you to sign something. And that's their time. They're not being paid to be, bothered like that. So it's a little different when I am working with somebody. It's because there's a contracted signing and they're getting paid for their time. So most people are pretty darn nice. They're polite. Every once in a while you have somebody that's just kind of, they just want to get done and get out of there. And that's fine. But I would say 95% of the people don't do that. Recently, I did a signing with Clint Eastwood last year. He could not have been any nicer. He was just the sweetest guy. I mean, he was genuine, down to earth, sat there. We took a lunch break and he sat there for an hour and just talked and told stories. And I mean, it was not your typical rush. We need to get this done as soon as possible. Everybody's got, other things to do. That was what we were doing that day. And that's what he was focused on. Joe Pesci was very nice. I know he's been, one that a lot of people have tried to get on the street before, and he just said he doesn't have any interest. He's like, no, I'd rather not spend my time doing that. I'd rather continue on doing what I was doing before you asked me. And, he talked about that a little bit, and it's funny, the funny stories and stuff, but, at the end of the day, with the private signing, he's sitting down in a calm environment and signing his autograph very nicely. And it's going to look a lot better on something than if you're chasing him down the street or, sticking something in his car window as he's driving by. Meg Ryan was another one that for a long time, it was kind of a white whale for collectors because she was not very kind on the street. People tried to get her, and she just was not pleasant. And so when I asked her if she would do this, she jumped at it, and she was happy to do it. And she walked in the room and was like, "Wow, this is amazing." So it's just a totally different attitude than what you've heard over all the years of people talking about how their interactions have been.
I mean, her autograph, her street autograph, is awful, but the ones that there was sat down were amazing. So, I
Yeah.
mean, I've witnessed autograph hunters, and I've got to say, my view is when these stars are walking down the street, we should leave them alone, because it's a
Hmm.
day job for them. I mean, if someone was hassling me every single day, I'd probably get annoyed. So this is why I like conventions, is because you're on that mutual ground. You've got that mutual agreement where they've agreed to go to that convention. You pay your money, you get your autograph. It's that mutual agreement, which is quite nice.
Hmm.
Because I met Keith. I've met Keith Sutherland quite a few times when he's been in concert over in the UK. And the first
Hmm.
time, literally, there was a group of about 9 or 10 men with bags full of photos that had been at
Oh.
his hotel. Then they came to the venue where me and my brother-in-law was stood, in the off chance that he'll, after the sound check, come out and sign. And they were there with all their photos. And luckily, the security said it will come out, but he'll only sign one photo per person, which I
Hmm.
thought, brilliant, thank you. That's all I want. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's just dreadful to see these autograph hunters, a bit like paparazzi. Do you know what I mean? They're hounding, and
Yeah.
obviously that's now caused people like Frank Oz to not sign, and a lot of these stars not to sign, on the streets. So it's quite nice to hear that obviously you get a sit down and you get a better quality autograph. Do you know what I mean? From an actual sit down from your company, which
Yeah.
I would rather pay for and know it was a sit down autograph and it's going to come out really nice. And talking about coming out really nice, I think I suffer from an OCD sort of complex. And I think you know where I'm going with this, because I ask constantly all these questions about what picture is best, what pen is best, um, because I'm scared. I'm scared that when I receive it, so the Gene Hackman one I got a while back, I was scared to open up the package in the thought of it's not going to be very good, and it turned out absolutely beautiful. It really, really did. I mean, have you got any advice to anyone that may be thinking about getting an autograph through your company, and sort of their concerns in that way?
Well, a lot of people just see an image and go, "I just want that signed, and I want it in this color because I've seen other things signed in that color, or because everything in my collection signed in this color." Not all photos or items look good in all colors. And a
Mm.
lot of people have gotten on the paint pen craze lately. You hear a lot of people, "Oh, it's got to be paint." Not everything looks good in paint. Paint does not actually adhere to some surfaces the way that you might think that a regular pen would. There's certain finishes, like the photos that we use are like a matte finish photo, and if you put a paint pen, a metallic silver or gold on that, it's gonna get feathered.
Mm.
It's not gonna stick the way that you're hoping. And a lot of people are very picky about the way the signature actually looks on what it's written on, not just the fullness of it, but the way that it sticks to the item. And sometimes those just don't work. But they saw their buddy have it, and they're like, "Well, that's what I want." And so that's use this pen, or they'll send their own pen. Sometimes they send their own pens, and I'm always happy to use people's personal pens, but sometimes they're not the best.
Mm.
Just based on the item. A lot of people like to print their own photos in their home, and while that is the cheaper route, there's a type of paper called dry photo paper, and that's a lot of times what people are using in their home, and it's like an inkjet thing. Signatures, whether using paint, ink, or whatever, are not going to last on that very long. They're going to actually seep into the paper. They're going to change color. It's just not going to be good. But if you're using metallic, it's just on that dry photo paper, it's just going to flake off. It literally, you can just wipe it right off, and it's ruined. So it's
Mm.
unfortunate, you spend all this money on something, and then, the item itself is the cheapest part of it. And where in fact that should be, what you put the most into, because that's what the signature is going to be on, and that's what it needs to last on. So I do try to, it's hard. You can't tell somebody, hey, this is a piece of garbage. You try to steer people in the right direction. We do offer a very large variety of images for every signing, and that's purposefully done so that people don't have to send their own stuff unless they absolutely want to, which is fine. But most people don't have the access to print professional photographs from a lab, so they print them off on their home printer, and then we have the problem I just mentioned. So posters are the same way. Sometimes, posters, if they're reprints, they have a kind of a glossier finish, and maybe that pen that you thought was going to look awesome just doesn't. So one of the things that we do is when we receive items, we kind of study each piece. And if there's going to be a problem, if I know ahead of time, then I'll reach out to somebody and say, hey, this may not be the best idea, and here's why. I'll show them some examples of maybe something that's happened in the past, from another signing on something very similar. Also, the way somebody signs, not everybody sits there and signs their name out like this. Sometimes it's whip, done. And if you take a paint pen and whip it across something that it doesn't adhere to very well, I mean, half of the signature is not going to be there. It's not going to look good. And then people automatically think that we used a pen that was not prepped correctly, or it didn't have any, ink or paint in it. And that's not the case. I mean, before every signing, every pen is tested, literally right before it's handed to the actor. And we even, push down on the table to prep it right before we hand it to them, even though we did it 30 minutes before. So that can also be a thing, is that who is signing. And some people just do their initials. Some people write out their signature. You look at Sylvester Stallone, he writes out, a very long name. And you look at somebody like Chris Evans, who just signs CE or C.
Yeah.
So all things to consider when you're thinking about, how something should be signed, what color, and just the manner of how you want it to go. If you're going to add somebody else to it in the future, just all that kind of stuff. So,
well, you know what? You've put my OCD slightly less knowing that, because the thing is, when you're spending your hard-earned money, you want to know that it's going to be, looked after and used correctly. And I mean, have you got a certain pens that you use? Is it Sharpies, or is it? I think I've heard, because in the UK we don't get all these deco pens, or is it Sharpie Extremes and stuff, or Viz, whatever it is. I mean, is there certain pens that you use that you would advise?
Yeah. Well, so you just mentioned a whole bunch of brands, and I would say yes to all, because there are iterations of all of those brands that we do use. The Vis, the blue Visavis or Vis-a-Vis, that has been a discontinued pen for more than a decade now. So if you find one of those, usually they're pretty used up. They're not going to be looking very good. But if you do find one that is working still, it's worth quite a bit of money. I have some of those, for personal pens or whatever. That's not something that I regularly use on items, because once those are gone, that's it. Blue Sharpie, black Sharpie, things like that we use regularly on photographs, because those turn out really nice. Paint pens, it depends on the item. A lot of it's deco, some of it's Sharpie paint pen, and then there are also other kind of off brands or some international brands that we use depending on the item. Edding is another one that's good for silver. It's a thinner point that can. A lot of people prefer signatures that are more thin and fine as opposed to the larger, bulky kind of signature. So we use that, and if that's what's requested, somebody might go, "Oh, this is exactly what I want with this kind of pen," and we'll know exactly what they're talking about. Trading cards are a whole different thing. There are not so many paint pens that we use for those, as opposed to the Stadler is a brand. Blue and black are kind of the two main ones on that. There are some ultra fine paint pens made by Sharpie. There's also, I'm trying to think of the brand. It's an international brand. I can't remember exactly what it's called at the moment, but it's an ultra fine, so it gives the most thin signature you can imagine, and it looks good on trading cards because that's a small area that they're going to be signing. You don't want something that's real big and thick with like a broad tip on
Yeah.
on a trading card, then it's just going to be a mess. So yeah, I mean, Molito is another brand that a lot of people use, but that actually is a water-based acrylic pen. It's not oil-based, and so if you're not careful, you can wipe the ink or the paint off, depending on the item. So it just depends. It's hard to say one or two, or this is exactly what we use here or there. It fluctuates. It really is. It's just a tiptoeing through a minefield, really, of like, oh, this needs to be in this, and this whole pile needs to be in that. And then when we do these signings, we'll have tables laid out, and we will have 30 different pens that are set all over the place for specific things. So silver doesn't all get done in the same silver, and blue doesn't get all done in the same blue. It's a wide array.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just so excited to see who else you may have up your sleeve. I mean, we all love an exclusive. I mean, is there anyone that you can tease that you may be having as a signer very, very soon?
I can't give any names away. There are definitely some people that we've been talking about, and there are things in the works. Contracts are pending and all that. But honestly, the website's not completely done, and so until that's done, I was not pushing to get a whole bunch of signings lined up, because my goal here is not to get a bunch of signings, announce them, and get them done, and then just have orders sitting, that need to go out. I would like to get something announced, get it done, complete it, get everybody their stuff back, and then move on to something else. One of the things that I put in the press release was, with this company, is less is more, and that wasn't just the amount of or the tier of the signing, but it was also the amount of signings we do. If I could do 12 incredible, amazing signings a year, one a month, I would rather do that than do 45, smaller signings that you can get anywhere. That's the focus.
Yeah, it's a bit like juggling. You don't want to have too many balls up in the air, because that's when things can go wrong. And I suppose the biggest thing for potential customers is that they want to get their stuff signed and back, and everything to go smoothly. So with each autograph, do they get like a certificate of authenticity? Do they get anything with it, like many other signing companies?
Yep. So anybody starting a company in this day and age that is not offering their own sticker with a database online that you can look it up is behind, definitely. The Everest Autographs COA sticker has been created, and it features the logo of the company, and it has a QR code with a number, and you'll be able to scan that on the back of any item that we have signed. And it takes you right to a page and says, here it is. This is when it got signed, who it got signed by, and what the item was. There are two different versions that you can select from. There's the what we're calling base camp authentication, which comes complimentary with any purchase. And that goes on the back by default. If somebody wants it on the front, they can request that. But it's if it's a photograph, it's going to go on the back bottom corner. And if you want to upgrade to the summit authentication, that's going to have a lot more stuff, and you're going to have an actual photo of your item once it's been signed that is featured in the database. It'll have any type of personalization or character name or extra writing that the celebrity might have put on there. It'll detail that. So a lot of times people can't understand what something says just by looking at it. So it's good to have that so you know exactly what it says. It'll have the theming, if it's a Star Wars photo, Indiana Jones, Harry Potter, Superman. And then if it's been previously signed by somebody, then we'll make note of that, because it's important that somebody doesn't think we added somebody else to it when it was only this guy we added. So, so it'll have all that information in addition to just the basic who signed it, when they signed it, and what it was signed on, 8x10 poster or whatever. And then the other thing is the location. We'll have that on there as well. If it was signed in Florida, if it was signed in London, wherever the signing took place.
That is awesome. And have you got plans in the future to travel? You just mentioned London, because obviously we do have quite a few stars over here that may not wish to travel over to wonderful America to get stuff signed. I mean, would you travel?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's part of this. We'll travel all over the world. I mean, previously, for private signings, I mean, I had to go visit Roger Moore in Nice, France. Um, Several signings in London towards the last year we had Celebration in London, of course, where
Mm.
we had about 40 or 50 people there, Star Wars related, that we were having signed. But before that, I was over there for Amelia Clark, Kit Harington, Helena Bonham Carter. We did her first signing ever over there a couple of years ago. Canada, we've gone to Canada for signings. I know I'm not thinking of all the countries and stuff I've been to for signings, but yeah, I mean, there's some that we actually, yeah, we had some that were pending. Like we were going to have to go to Switzerland, we were going to have to go to Japan, we were going to have to go to Australia. All things that were all possible, and whether they just didn't happen because of one reason or the other. But yeah, we go all over the world, so there's nowhere that I'm not going to say, oh no, we're not going to go there because it's too far, or whatever. If it's a good name and it makes sense and people are excited about it, then we'll get on that plane and go.
I mean, I can guess it's quite sort of dependent on work commitments as well, a bit like conventions. You know what I mean? You book your flights, you get it all arranged, and then they get a call in from their agent to say that they're having to do reshoots or something. So I suppose it holds its risks like conventions do, and everything like that. Have you got a dream guest that you haven't signed, or a dream guest for Everest Autographs? I mean, that you would love to get?
I do, and unfortunately, it's impossible now. But Bruce Willis is somebody I have always wanted to work with, and that would have been amazing. And unfortunately, with his condition now, it doesn't seem like that's a possibility anymore. But that would have been the one, I think, as far as big A-list names, that we haven't worked with yet. But at this point, Keanu Reeves would be awesome. I actually met him a couple of weeks ago on a New Year's Eve concert thing that he was doing with his band Dogstar. Got to chat with him for a few minutes and the rest of the band, got a photo with him and everything. But he's very down to earth. He's very nice. And I think, a lot of people need his signature on a lot of stuff. So he's one that I would love to do something with in the future. There's all kinds of people. Tom Cruise would be fun.
Endless. I mean, Tom Cruise, for instance, I've never seen him do a signing. It's only, and he's the most generous person on the red carpet as well. So it'll be interesting to see what his sit-down autograph actually looks like, because his ones that he signs are all over the place, and I've been looking for years to try and get a nice looking one. But it's always been difficult because obviously it's all premieres and everything like that.
What I've noticed with his signature is most of the stuff I've seen, because it's all been signed on the street, it actually looks really good. He's got a pretty nice signature. And I just have to imagine that it's because he cares about what his signature looks like.
Yeah.
And if he was signing and sit down and sign autographs that way, I feel like it'd be the same way. He would have the same quality, or maybe even a little better, just because it was sitting on a table and, more controlled environment.
I mean, it's funny you say that he cares, because penmanship, I've got to say, with the older stars are a lot better than the newer ones, I've got to say.
Oh, yeah.
That I've observed. You look at Clint Eastwood's, and Gene Hackman's, and now you get a C. A squiggle. But saying that, Robert Downey Jr.'s looks really nice, which I was quite surprised at. But no, I mean, I cannot wait. And if you ever need any free help while you're over in the UK, please give me a shout.
I will.
I'm always here to help and get involved. But Chris, it's been a great pleasure to have you on the show. I cannot wait to see where this company goes in 10 years' time, and what spectacular guests that you get to sign. And I cannot wait to start spending my money with you, sir.
Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. And yeah, we're looking forward to the future. This is something that, I'm really passionate about. And I've decided to put two passions together, which is, climbing mountains and autographs. So I feel it's a different thing, it's a bit unique, but I think people are digging it. And, I look forward to merging the two together, as I continue in my career and my personal life and everything. So climbing mountains and collecting autographs for other people. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be looking forward
Just
to
one
it.
last question: is there one autograph in your personal collection that you would never get rid of? If you had to pick one,
So
so you went to a desert island and you had to pick one autograph to take with you from your personal collection.
that's hard. Wow. Because I focus mainly on Star Wars and that's pretty much what my collection consists of. I have a couple here and there of other non-Star Wars related things, but gosh, well, there is okay. So there's one 16 by 20 that's signed by Mark, Carey, and Harrison. It's an officially licensed Star Wars autograph. All three of them. It's a one of one. It was 16 by 20, printed in a metallics finish. That's the only one in the world that exists. So I'd probably grab that if I had to just pick one.
Do you know what the biggest regret was? I remember Carrie was at a convention in the UK, and I never got an autograph from her. And I was thinking about it, and I never did. And when you regret it, and obviously prices go up now, and as soon as someone sadly passes, that what I hate to see is when people go straight onto eBay and raise the price by double or three times. It's really sad.
Yeah.
But yeah, I regret that. But yeah, I mean, Star Wars. Funny story. My wife's great auntie was in Star Wars, and
Really?
2 years into the relationship, she told me that she was in Star Wars, and apparently, her great auntie was a subject of a panel at Celebration with George Lucas.
Okay.
Because I was chatting to Tom Spina, and he couldn't believe it. Her name was Gilda Cohen, and she was credited as Aunt Beru, but she played the part of Cabe, I think that's how you pronounce it, with Rusty Coffey.
Yeah.
And there's some great pictures of her with the twins in the cantina and everything. But I've got her passport signed. It's great. I mean, obviously she passed away many moons ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's crazy. Star Wars for me, I've always got a passion for. I've actually been to Elstree quite a few times to the
Lovely.
actual
Nice.
George Lucas stage and everything like that. And I've actually held at Prop Store. They had an auction and they had the original lightsabers. So this is a great thing about having Prop Store as sponsors. I go to their HQ. I don't know if you've been there yet.
No, I haven't.
No. Well, they had recently the Anthony Daniels collection. So they had his C-3PO head there that I held. They had lightsabers that were actually screen used. And it's just
awesome.
crazy to see. And I held a ILM X-Wing that was used on screen. And then he turned around, Tim, the general manager, he said, whatever you do not drop it. It's worth like half $500,000. And I was like, oh dear, I'm the most clumsiest person in the world. But the funny thing is, I met Anthony Daniels a few days after the auction. And one thing that Anthony Daniels did, I don't know if you've experienced this with him, I actually left quite sad, quite upset. And then someone explained something to me and I felt better. So I met him and he was lovely, really nice, very charismatic. But he had a table that was quite high up that he was signing stuff. And I had my hands on the table, like on the edge of the table. And he asked me to move my hands. But he said it quite abrupt. So I've moved my hands and I took the book and I bid farewell. And then I left thinking that was really rude. And then someone explained to me that he takes care in his penmanship so much that he doesn't want anyone to put any hands on the table in case it moves the table. I don't know if this is true, but this is what I've been told, and it does make a bit of sense. But it did make me leave thinking, actually, that's believable in some way or form. But I
Yeah.
don't know if you've experienced that with him.
Yeah, that is definitely true. Anthony's very, very particular about his signature. It is a form of art, and he doesn't want it to look bad on anything for anybody. And so, if you touch the table, or if you lean over the table and you're in his light, the shadow cast over the item, he doesn't. He'll just stop and ask you to move. So that's why he did that. He wasn't trying to be rude or anything. He just wanted to make sure you got a nice autograph on your item, and
Yeah.
don't walk away.
He was lovely though to me. He really was. He saw my
Yeah.
prop store lanyard and straight away started talking to me about that, because obviously prop store probably made him about £2.5-3 million. So,
Yeah.
obviously he saw that and said hello. But Chris, thank you so much. Look after yourself, and I hope to speak to you in the future. Maybe in person when you come over to the UK. But keep safe and stay super, my friend.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it.